If you're reading the Bible through with me this year, then you just read Isaiah 20, or you're about to read Isaiah 20. Now, if you aren't reading it through with me, there's a link in the description. I'm reading it through chronologically and walking through every day of it. But in Isaiah 20, there's kind of this crazy story about how God tells Isaiah to strip down nude for 3 years in order to demonstrate the agony and burden that's about to be placed upon Egypt. And this is crazy. I not only think it's one of these things that's like, oh, back then this was a normal thing, but to us it's crazy now because we're modern people. I think this is kind of crazy to all people. I mean, even Adam and Eve, when they left the garden, they had clothes on because it's a thing that happened after people sinned in the world. They would clothe themselves. But Isaiah is nude to show the shame that's about to be brought on to Egypt. And why would God cause Isaiah to do this? Why would he command him to strip down for 3 years? The first and most obvious reason is it tells what is going to happen to the people of Egypt. As we see in Isaiah 20, verse 3, then the Lord said, as my servant Isaiah has walked naked and barefoot for 3 years as a sign and a proponent against Egypt and Cush, so shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptian captives and the Cushite exiles, both young and old, naked and barefoot with their buttocks uncovered, and the nakedness of Egypt. The fact that Isaiah was forced to be nude for 3 years as a demonstration of what's about to happen to them shows the severity as to which we take sin. One of the biggest struggles for me in understanding why God does certain things is because I view sin as not that big of a deal. It's paid for on the cross. It's already been bought and paid. Not that big of a deal. God views sin as super, super serious. So that disconnect in our viewpoint of sins causes us to see the world very differently. But when we view it like this, that sin is so serious that it's going to have this amount of ramifications, it begins to shift our entire perspective on the world. Another note here is that some people say that Isaiah was actually wearing some sort of costume, but based off my research of looking at different translations and even looking at the original Hebrew word, it actually just translates straight to nude. So there's nothing that I would say that would point me to where Isaiah actually had some sort of costume instead of him actually being nude. The second reason that I think God did this with Isaiah was to build his faith. Imagine God asking you to do this. Here's a note real quick. Just because God tells someone to do something doesn't mean he's telling you to do it. I don't think this is a commandment that you should go out and do. But imagine he asked you to do something this crazy. What are people going to start saying about you over these next couple of years? If it's this long, 3 years, that's a long time to do this. Everyone's going to think that you're crazy until they don't, until it comes true. And I honestly think that through the Lord asking Isaiah to do something this difficult, it really built his faith up a lot. And I think it's incredible how God can use this for Isaiah just as much as he can use Isaiah's actions to turn the people back to him. And finally, I think that God used this so that Isaiah would truly feel the pain of those that he's ministering to. You know, that's been one of the biggest struggles with me in my life, is having empathy towards the people that I'm ministering through. Truly sitting in their shoes for a moment. And Isaiah, when this judgment comes upon the land, he will be able to look at people and say, I truly know what it's like. I did it. I went through it. And this doesn't mean that we need to go be homeless to witness to the homeless, but the Lord using this situation through Isaiah to humble him, it not only did that, but it also gave him empathy. Remember, Isaiah received a very rare title, a servant of God. That's what the Lord called him. And in the same way that Isaiah was asked to do this, so was Ezekiel. So we see it's at least somewhat of a common practice among the prophets of the Lord. And that points me to say, if I want to be a servant of God, then I'm going to have to do really crazy, radical things in my life that the world might look at and go, wow, you're a weirdo. But in reality, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to impress him. Anyways, if this helped you, then be sure to leave a like on this video. It really does help the channel, and I'll see you back here later as we continue to go through the Bible together.